Hi, eighth grade. Time for another geography class. I'm going to leave my face off of the video today because I'm going to attempt to do a couple different things where I show you a piece of a video that I found about what the subject that we're talking about. I've often done that in class, but this time I wanted you to be able to see the whole page. So we're going to talk about three countries today. We're going to do Ghana, then we're going to talk about Burkina Faso, and the Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast. Okay, so those three countries, the last time in our last lesson, we talked about Nigeria, Benin, and Togo. And so we're moving on to the rest, to another piece of West Africa. We have just a few more lessons to go, and I'm planning on our test opening, I believe, on Friday. Okay, so let's first of all look at the country of Ghana. The area of Ghana was at one point called the Gold Coast because they have a lot of gold. It was an area where the Portuguese settled it, um, and they were taking gold out of the country at quite an alarming rate. Um, they eventually the British took over and made the area into a colony, and then they gained their independence somewhere around 1957. Their chief export is cacao, which is the main ingredient in chocolate. Between Ghana, they are actually the second largest exporter of cacao in the world. The Cote d'Ivoire is number one. So between the two countries, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, they produce 60% of the world's chocolate. The major river here in Ghana is the Volta, which flows southward through from Lake Volta to the Gulf of Guinea. Lake Volta is the largest man-made lake in the world. The Okay, so wait a minute. Let me go back to this for just a minute because I want to tell you something else about Lake Volta. Lake Volta, largest man-made lake in the world. When they built it, it was with the promise that it was going to bring electricity to the region because they were going to make a hydroelectric dam to create the lake. And so they were going to be able to do so many different things for this really, really poor region of the world. And all of that did not come to bear. It did not actually happen. When Ghana gained their independence in 1957, they quickly turned to China and the Soviet Union for guidance. So they became ruled by Marxist dictators. They had quite a big problem with that from 1957 through the middle of the 1990s. And then in 1996, they were able to elect to put in a stable government, and they've been one of the most stable countries in the region ever since. Okay, Burkina Faso. This country received their independence in 1960, as many African countries did, but they have been plagued by instability ever since. It just really, really have struggled to gain stability. Um, and therefore political freedoms remain very limited. They too have been um, turning towards communism at times, or socialism at least, to find the answers to their government problems. The country is it has a lot of extremes of weather. It has the Sahel there, which is the dry regions just south of the Sahara, which means that they have droughts are very frequent there. It's got a lot of desert areas, just a very, very poor country. It is landlocked as well, which doesn't help them any. Um, Most of the men who live in Burkina Faso actually go to other countries nearby to work. They can't even find jobs within their country. 90% of the people in the country of Burkina Faso are subsistence farming, meaning they're growing enough to feed their own family, which is just really, really sad. And there's also a very strong occultic influence or satanic influence in the country as well. All right, Côte d'Ivoire. This country was settled by the French. French sailors arrived there. They actually named it Côte d'Ivoire, meaning Ivory Coast, back in the 14, 1500s. And they began trading there for ivory with the people who lived there. All right, so that prompted the French name, which is Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. Okay, so it has been since they've been a relatively stable country for most of their existence since that 1960 or ish date of freedom. Um, no, actually, anyway, they've been relatively stable until recently, when they've had a couple of issues with civil war, and the UN actually had to step in and help them settle their disputes. But they have maintained very close ties with the French, and they have quite a bit of religious freedom. In fact, the Christians in Côte d'Ivoire have begun sending out missionaries to surrounding countries. All right, and that is all that I have on that part. So I'm going to move over to this video that I have here to show you. It is about cocoa production. Okay, and I know we're not going to get through it because we only have 8 minutes left, but I want to show you what I can of this video. I'm a little concerned that the sound is not going to come through, so if there's a problem with it, please let me know.
Look, we love it. It's one of the world's most popular treats. In the UK alone, we each eat an average of around 3 bars a week. But you don't have to look too far before you find the chocolate industry itself is far from sweet. Many farmers who grow the cocoa for our treats are underpaid and exploited. That means they can't earn enough for the basic human rights many of us take for granted, including food, education, and housing. So how can we stop chocolate from leaving a bitter aftertaste? Let's find out. Chocolate's history dates back well over 2,000 years to Mexico, but most is now grown in West Africa. 60% of the world's cocoa comes from Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. The main ingredient of chocolate, cocoa, grows on trees in pods. It takes a cocoa tree 5 years to grow pods, which are cut down with sharp knives and cracked open. Each pod has 20 to 60 seeds covered in a white pulp. The pulp is laid under banana leaves or in wooden crates and turned occasionally over 5 to 7 days. The pulp ferments to leave sticky cocoa beans, which are laid out in the sun to dry. Growing cocoa is hard work and relies heavily on the weather. With changing weather patterns, cocoa farmers face more uncertainty as crops are more at risk of rain damage or disease. Ebrotier has been farming cocoa for over 25 years and knows how difficult it can be.
Les maladies sont fréquentes.
Diseases are more and more frequent. Because of climate change and the excessive heat, the trees often die.
From the cocoa farm, the cocoa beans are sold to traders who export them. Most of these go to Europe, where they are made into liquid cocoa, cocoa butter, and cocoa powder mixed with milk or soy and made into chocolate. Cocoa is big business. In the UK alone, the chocolate industry is worth £4 billion a year. But cocoa farmers are at the very end of the supply chain and see very little of cocoa's value. They have little control over how much they sell their cocoa for.
Okay, so she's going to go on to explain a lot of different things that are really interesting, and I'll put the link to this video in the description that I leave for you to watch. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but some of you might be interested in the facts that she has to share. Basically, what she says is these farmers earn about $1 a day for all of the work that they put into getting us chocolate, when it would really take about $2.50 a day, I think was the number she gave, to support a family in Côte d'Ivoire. which doesn't seem like very much at all to us, but yet they still can't make it. And this is a very, very difficult job to do. It's a very strenuous job to do. And these people are, living below the poverty line to provide us with a chocolate bar. Just something worth thinking about there when you head to the grocery store for that next bar of chocolate. And one of the things that this association does, is the Fair Trade Association, is they make sure that they're giving back to the communities that they take chocolate from. So anyway, I hope you took some notes. Take your quiz when you're finished. Have a good day.